Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Min. I'm pretty sure you've heard of the Josef Fritzl case in Austria, where a man imprisoned his own daughter for years. Well, today I'm going to tell you about another case that's just as crazy. In Luoyang, China, there was a guy who kidnapped, raped, and killed women. It's a pretty messed up story. And I've checked my audience analysis, and I get that not everyone may be familiar with China's geography and cities. So before we dive into the case, let me give you a quick intro to this gorgeous Chinese city called Luoyang. But while if you're not into it, feel free to skip ahead to the case chapters and listen to today's story directly. Luoyang is a city located in the west of Henan province, at the confluence of the Luo River and the Yellow River. Luoyang is actually one of the oldest cities in China. It's known as one of the cradles of Chinese civilization and is the earliest of the 4 great ancient capitals in China. Basically, it has a super-duper long history, and many Han Chinese in China have migrated outward from the vicinity of Luoyang. So, the ancient buildings in Luoyang can be traced back to China's Sui and Tang dynasties. Unlike other Chinese ancient cities that adhere to a symmetrical layout, such as Beijing's Forbidden City and Xi'an's Chang'an City, Luoyang is different. The 2 former capitals have a clear central axis with symmetrical architecture groups on both sides, as you can see from the pictures. Luoyang also has an axis running throughout the entire city though. You can see that it leans to the left. Quite interesting, is it? Furthermore, the palaces in Luoyang are named based on the 7 constellations in Chinese culture. Luoyang city has many historical traces representing the Chinese nation, with the most prominent being Buddhism, and this belief is still held by many Chinese people today. Some of Luoyang's representative buildings include the Yingtianmen, Tianjinqiao, Mingtang, Tiantang, Dingdingmen, Hanjia Cangcheng, Longmen Shiku, Lushe Dafo, Long 62 Pin, and so on. Oh my, looking at these pictures, I can't help but wish I could take my camera and vlog to take you on a tour one by one. It's truly so beautiful, magnificent, and breathtaking. When I was just turned 18, I traveled there alone, staying in hostels and receiving help from many people locally, and met some fantastic friends. But the internet wasn't as developed back then, and I, being young, didn't have as many tools to record those moments. Otherwise, I could have compiled it into a video to take you on a journey to that ancient city. I will make that come true with my Living in China as a Chinese series one day. Anyway, let's leave the travel matters to the vlog and start today's case. It was the 30th of August, 2011. The night was creeping up on this old city. Most of the stores had closed, but a few stayed open. Every now and then, a person or two would walk by. A man looked like he was in his late 30s brought 2 women in their 20s with him. The girls looked kinda ghostly-like, like porcelain dolls that never see the sun. The 3 of them all walked towards to a lottery shop. The owner of the lottery shop, growing impatient, waved his hand indicating that they are about to close. Then he locked eyes with the man, and it dawned to him that the man wasn't there to buy lottery tickets. So the owner quickly turned his head towards a door on the side of the counter and motioned for that guy to take the girls straight through. It was clear that he was there to pimp out the girls. Funny thing was, the lottery shop looked innocent enough from the outside, but it was actually a front for organized prostitution. So there's this dude in his 30s, and he was really tanned. He left one of the girls on the lottery shop and took the other to a motel. Now that the girls are all set, he's chilling on the side of the road, staring at the time on his phone and doing some quick math to see how much cash he'd made today. Well, it didn't take too long for the girls to finish the deals. the girls met up with this tanned dude at the motel entrance and handed over all the cash they had just made. The guy's attitude changed from being serious to a bit more chill and approving. He even gave them props, saying, "Yo, you did great today. Now we can head home." Home, the word he used isn't correct. It was more like a hell. So the three of them get to this basement in some old neighborhood. To get down, they had to walk down some slightly slanted steps. The hallway was pitch dark, and the guy had to feel around for his keys to open up the outermost iron door that led to the basement. As soon as they got inside, they were hit by this gross, damp, and musty smell. It was a small basement, not even 20 square meters, all dirty and cluttered, with mold covering the walls. Inside, there were 2 leather sofas, a computer with a camera, and just a bunch of random stuff scattered everywhere. And there was just this incredible bad smell lingering in the air. There was this small ventilated window on the wall, but it was sealed, completely. As a result, there's no fresh air entering this tiny underground room. This was bad enough, right? You might think, as I did, that these 2 girls were held captive in this pasty-like place. Then this dude cleared the crap off the computer desk and found a small glass door on the floor. He opened it up to reveal another secret space underneath. There's a narrow passage behind the glass door that was dug out by hand. It's really tight, only big enough for 1 person. So he rushed the girls into the passage, went through a bunch of iron doors, and finally got to this even tinier cellar. It's just so cramped and smelling there. And there were already 2 girls locked up inside. When he put his 2 girls in there were 4 girls living in this place. Or should I say, trapped in this cage. But this was his underground paradise. Okay, well, we'll go back in time and start from the very first crime he did. So before I jump into the story, I just gotta say something here. A lot of the victims in this case are still alive, and in most Chinese accounts, their names are kept anonymous. So to keep things simple, I'm gonna use English names for the victims, while sticking with the real Chinese name of the wrongdoer, just like most Chinese news reports do. One day back in October in 2009, Emily was doing her usual thing, waiting for clients at a nightclub. She was sitting on the sofa near the front desk, watching the patrons come and go like a doll on display. Prostitution was super illegal in China, so most nightclubs just sold booze and provided a place for both sides to meet up. They got tipped off with that. So the real money was in staying overnight with a client in a motel room or wherever. That's how they make big bucks. Emily had heard that some of her more experienced colleagues had caught the eye of wealthy clients and were lucky enough to have sugar daddies who would take them away for several nights of luxury. Emily's family was well off, and that's why she considered taking this shortcut to earn quick money. She desperately wanted a way out of poverty. So when this dude made eye contact with her, she couldn't help but check him out. The dude in front of her was dressed casually, with no fancy clothes or bling, and he had a tan complexion that made him look like someone without high income. Emily felt a bit let down and quickly looked away. But the guy started walking towards her. Emily thought to herself that she was in the service industry after all, and it was her job to greet the customers, right? Besides, she hadn't been booked for an overnight stay yet, and she had been in this line of work for about a month with low earnings. She was starting to feel a bit stressed about that. So after a quick chat, the guy suggested they spend the night together and made a tempting offer. Emily had never done an overnight booking before and wasn't sure if the price was fair. She decided to check with her manager, but the man gave her a doubtful look as if to say, "Really? You are not sure you are worth it?" This got Emily a little riled up, so she ditched the manager's input and went off with the guy anyway. They walked and Emily was getting more and more anxious. There were a bunch of cheap motels around, but the guy just kept on walking. Emily asked him why they weren't stopping and he was like, "We're going to my place. Why waste money on a room when we don't have to, right? We don't have to." Emily checked him out again, so he was just pretty plain, and even though he was a little scared about going somewhere remote, she didn't want to make a big deal about it. So when those two entered a residential area, Emily was like, "Phew." It was a residential neighborhood after all, so if anything went wrong, she could just call for help, right? But then her relief was short-lived, because the man took her to the basement of an apartment building. And just as Emily was thinking that this guy must be really poor if he could only afford a place like this, everything changed. As soon as they entered the room, the man's expression turned all sinister and he wore this really menacing look on his face. Emily's alarm bells in mind were going off like crazy, telling her she should have run, but it was too late. The man had already locked the door and poor Emily was unable to open it in her panic state. So this guy slapped her a couple of times and then said something like, "You better not even think about leaving. If you want to make it out alive, you better do whatever I say." Emily was totally freaked out and in pain. She didn't even know what to do or say, and it felt like a total nightmare. The guy was totally out of it and just chucked Emily into this tiny cramped space under the basement. It was so narrow that she couldn't even stand up straight. It was like a coffin or something. From then on, Emily was like his private sex slave. With no human rights, no dignity, she was trapped in there without a cell phone or clothes on. Eating, drinking, urinating, defecating, and sleeping, all of it took place within that tiny cramped space. And on top of that was endless abuse. During her captivity, she lost all sense of time. Later news reports revealed that she had been held for approximately 2 months before another girl named Lily was also brought in. And Lily was only 16 at the time, and she too had been deceived in there by this man under the pretext of an overnight booking. So these 2 girls were going through hell, and on top of that, they also had to help the guy expand this cellar. Like I mentioned, the cellar where Emily was first confined was extremely small, making it difficult for even one girl to move around. And when Lily added to the mix, they had to expand the space. It was clear that this man had ambition beyond just imprisoning these 2 innocent girls. So as the girls were going through some really tough times, with abuse and enslavement being part of their daily routine, Emily decided she had had enough. She was done with being scared all the time and wanted out of that awful place. One day while they were all digging in that cellar, she took a swing at the man with a shovel, hoping to knock him out and grab the keys to their freedom. Unfortunately, Emily had been captive for way too long, and the living conditions were beyond terrible, with barely any food to keep them going. She was weak and malnourished, and the hit didn't do the trick. It only made the man angrier. She got tossed up and thrown to a bed. He severely punished her with the worst possible means one can think of. He raped her, he stopped giving her food and water and beaten her with various tools. And to make it worse, the man made Lily witness it all. She could hear her screaming, begging, seeing her bleeding, but she couldn't do anything to stop him. So Lily saw Emily's torment, and it drained her soul bit by bit. It was like she had become a puppet without a soul. And when the guy told her to strangle Emily, Lily didn't feel anything anymore. It was like a dark force had taken away the little spark of humanity inside of her, and she did what the man told her. His voice kept echoing in her mind like a demon, saying she was his good girl and he would like her the most. She choked her, but she didn't have enough strength to kill her. That demon had helped her with that strangulation. She felt her fingers were dug so deep that they were literally sunk into Emily's neck. They only stopped when Emily's face turned completely dark and she was no longer breathing. But the death of Emily didn't make Lily's life gotten any better as he promised. It gotten worse as he had only her now. He threw all his violence on her. The situation was just straight up a horrifying cycle. Lily found herself alone in the cellar just like Emily before her, enduring torture and then watching as new girls were brought in one after another. Every new girl thought about escaping and overpowering the man, but Lily would just give them a blank expression and point to a certain spot in the cellar, telling them Emily's story to dissuade them. Emily's remains had decomposed beyond recognition in the perpetually dark and unventilated cellar, but the stench of her body lingered forever like a silent thread that gradually eroded the consciousness of the captivated girls. Inside this small cellar, 4 girls were imprisoned, and they had to do everything there, including eating, drinking, and even using the restroom. Initially, the man would bring them food every 2 days, but as time went on, he annoyed and told them to create a small kitchen in that cellar. He would then occasionally bring some ingredients for them to cook for themselves. The girls may have been driven to the brink of insanity by their captivity. They were totally down to take some harsh scoldings and beating while under pressure and pain, just to beg their captor to bring something to keep them busy. Perhaps fearing that the girls may truly go insane, making it too difficult to handle, the man gradually provided them with some relief. He gave them laptops without internet access and some books. The man didn't visit the cellar every day, and he didn't subject the girls to inhuman torture every time he came. He was like an unpredictable tyrant, and when he did nothing, it was considered a blessing for the girls. So basically, this creep would treat these poor girls like they were his pets. If they did what he wanted, he would toss them a bone by letting them do small things like go outside for a while or giving them some treats. But if they didn't do what he wanted, he would take things to a whole other level of violence and humiliation. This dude had complete control over everything down there, like he was the king of his own messed up underworld. He brainwashed those girls so good that they didn't even think about fighting back anymore. All they wanted was to make their creepy ruler happy. So it was kind of like those old Chinese dynasty, with all the concubines vying for attention. But down there in this underground world, everything just felt totally surreal, sad, and absurd. Li Hao thought he had taken care of the girls for so long, and the expenses were increasing. He couldn't do this forever as he didn't get any profit out of this situation, right? What can he do? Just as he thought of having the girls cook for themselves, maybe it's time to make them earn their own money. He found himself a bit of a genius. As he thought, he couldn't let them out though, he could let them utilize their own strength, right? So he thought they could provide us fee-based nude chat services online. Perfect. They were prostitutes. They should know better than anyone how to please men. Except, of course, Li Hao had to monitor all of their performance. Therefore, Li Hao set up a computer and a camera in the basement and brought his captive up one by one to the basement to engage in nude chats. He'd sit on the back of the camera, watching them flirting with the guys on the internet. He felt sexually excited on one hand and mentally satisfied as a controller on the other. His presence symbolized a state where they couldn't seek help from the outside world. When the paid session was over, he'd push the girls right down to the cellar and disconnected the internet and even the power cable of the PC. He would bring these cables with him just in case. When he was not around, the girls could manage to come up to the basement and seek help without him noticing. Didn't want that. And Li Hao was overjoyed when he counted the money he received from all these new chats and selling the videos of them being raped. During this whole online prostitution, one of the new girls, Grace, got murdered. Grace, much like all of the girls who got deceived into this hell, was served as a prostitute before. But either she or Li Hao knew that she was having a very bad type of STD. In that case, he couldn't get to have sexual interaction with her anymore. But he couldn't just let her go, right? What would he do? Instead of killing her with his own hands, Li Hao was no longer the amateur like he did with Emily. He decided to make his pets to kill her. He purposely heavily beaten Grace in front of everyone and provoked bullying among the girls. He wanted them to hate her and whispered to other girls that Grace deserved to die. He was like a snake. He often mistreated Grace, belittling her, and even commanding his favorite girls to physically assault her. On a day in late July 2011, Grace finally died in the foul and sinister cellar. She wasn't died to Li Hao's hands, he made sure of it. And Grace was buried with concrete near Emily in a corner of that small cellar. So after that incident, Li Hao was feeling like a total boss with the ladies. He started being more confident and chill about it. Before, he never really let the girls go out and do stuff. But now, he's finally thinking about taking them out into the world. But not for fun, of course. He wanted them to make him real cash. The online nude chats gave him a taste of the thrill of making money. But it could never compare to the money he could make by physically pimping them out. Hence, he got contact with a few shady friends and set up 2 patrons for his girls. Now he gotta pick the girls he found the most obedience. So he chose Lily and Kate. Lily goes without saying as she was one of the participants in the murder of Emily, while Kate was the most ordinary one during this whole bully incident with Grace. He didn't want to choose the most active one in this whole bully thing, as she might turn on him unexpectedly, just as she bared her fangs at her companions. Li Hao was definitely not looking for any betrayal at this point. So Kate was taken to this cheap motel, and even before anything taken place, she broke down in tears when she saw her client. Luckily, this client was just a regular dude, and not like Li Hao, who gets off on seeing people suffer. He was flustered and asked what was wrong, and Kate told him about the inhuman abuse she had been through for the past few months. Prostitution, like I said, is super illegal in China, but he knew that he had to tell the police what had happened to Kate. But this cheap motel was already notorious for being used for illegal prostitution, so they didn't even bother to provide a room phone. So feeling a bit helpless, the client lent Kate his own mobile phone to call the police. Kate was so grateful and emotional that she dialed the emergency number while crying. She tried to keep her voice steady as she recounted everything that had happened to her to the operator, but it was hard. She didn't know the exact address of the basement where they were kept, but she tried her best to describe the location to the police. After hanging up, the client told Kate that he would pretend like they had just had a regular transaction and pay the full amount. so she wouldn't raise suspicions from her captor. That was 2011. The SIM card registration wasn't fully covered yet, so there were still some unregistered cards. And the client happened to have one of those unregistered phones. The client didn't want to get into troubles, so he was okay lending his phone to Kate for the call. However, he hoped that Kate wouldn't reveal his involvement once they were rescued. And I don't see any mention of his identity in any documents when I researched this case. So I guess Kate, she kept her promise. So Kate gave the cops some clues and they followed them to the basement. After checking that nobody was there, they broke in and found the entrance to the cellar. The way into the cellar was a narrow passage, only about 60 centimeters wide and 20 to 30 centimeters high. So only one officer could go in at a time. The cops suited up and started going down the cellar, which was 6 meters deep and had lots of locked iron gates in the way. They went back and forth several times before finally reaching the bottom level, where the 4 girls were trapped. Imagine being stuck in a cellar like that with no way out. It's a good thing the cops finally found them. When they reached the last iron gate, they heard a faint voice from inside that sounded hopeful. "Hey, you come back." It was like a person who talked to her guard. The head cop got more cautious and hurried to unlock the door. But when the door opened, the police saw something they didn't expect. In a small, dark room, 4 young girls stood and stared right at them with big smiles on their faces. When they saw it was the police and not the guy who locked them up, they looked scared. Normally, people who just got rescued would be crying and grateful, but not these girls. First, they were excited and happy, then confused and scared. After some time, one of the girls started crying loudly out of nowhere. In the end, the police saved all 4 of them. But when they talked to the girls, they found it weird that they didn't hate the man who hurt them. Instead, they begged for his forgiveness and made excuses for him, with some even thinking that he was a good man. So during the investigation, the cops first checked out the cellar where the girls were held captive. They found that the cellar had 2 rooms. The inner one had 2 floors where the girls slept upstairs, and the lower floor held cooking utensils, gas canisters, rice, oil, salt, etc. To air out the cellar, the man had installed a 6-meter-long ventilation pipe. The pipe entered through the glass door, went along the passageway and into the cellar. But due to the narrow pipe, the air inside the cellar still stank. The outer room was where the girls did their thing, using the computer, ate, drank, and relieved themselves. The police were disgusted by the mix of molded food, excrement, and the stench of unwashed bodies that had been going on for a long time. Next to the computer, the cops found a few beat-up books that had been heavily used, obviously the girls' only form of entertainment. On the floor, they discovered condoms, broadhand installation instructions, bank account transactions, records, phone bills, shuffles, handcuffs, and a hospital abortion application form. This showed that one of the girls had gotten pregnant from the monster's prolonged abuse, and he clearly didn't want the baby, so he took her to abort it. The police also found a public security agency case solving and rescue state. To better hide his crimes over 2 years, the man had constantly studied anti-investigation skills. That's part of the reason why he wasn't caught for so long. And the other part we will reveal soon. Following case clues, the police found 2 other girls' dead bodies. Since Grace was sealed in cement, her body had fused with it, so they could only figure out it was her through DNA testing. The police examined Emily's body and found out that she died because she was choked, starved, and her organs failed due to injuries. Even the experienced police officers felt scared when they saw the scene. Seriously, what kind of messed up thoughts does someone have to do such cruel things? After searching the cellar, the police started investigating the man's identity. They talked to people who lived nearby and found out that his name was Li Hao, but the basement was registered under his wife's name. The police were surprised by how the locals described Li Hao after they interviewed him. So Li Hao had been on the run for a couple of days, but the cops finally caught him when he was heading back to his hometown of this Nanyang city. They brought him in for questioning, but he didn't say a word, just stared up at the ceiling like he didn't have a care for the world. He knew he was toast and there was no getting out of it. He was just waiting for the hammer to drop. While the police eventually managed to get him talk. According to Li Hao, he was the only breadwinner in his family since his wife wasn't working and they had a mortgage to pay. Even though he was getting treated like garbage at work, he had to suck it up and deal with it because he needed to provide for his family. You know the cliché. So one day in August 2009, he stumbled upon some raunchy videos online and figured out that he could make some serious cash by having girls got naked and chat with dudes. That's when he got the idea to dig a secret cellar to keep these girls. Well, he didn't explain why he would want to have girls captivated at first place. He told his wife he applied for a night guarding job so he could sneak out and work on the cellar. Since he was bringing in money somehow, his wife never suspected a thing. But it wasn't enough to just have a cellar under his basement. So he started digging tunnels and stuff to make it extra sneaky. After a few months of digging, it was almost done. But he was getting too tired to finish it up himself. So he started looking for girls to capture and force them to do the labor. That's how it all started. Li Hao was living on this double life, being a total monster 1 minute and a regular dude the next. For 2 years, Li Hao continued doing it without anyone suspecting. However, the police eventually discovered that there was more to the story than Li Hao had revealed. Li Hao didn't just stumble into a life of crime, he planned it all out. He chose an old, poorly managed neighborhood because he knew it would be a good place to commit his crimes without getting noticed. And he picked girls in the sex work as his victims because they often work alone and don't have many friends or families to call for their missing. Plus, people don't always take them seriously enough because the nature of their work. Li Hao claimed he turned to crime to help support his family, but the police weren't buying it at all, as they backtracked him. He didn't give much money to his wife, not his parents. And he spent way more on the girls than he ever made from them, so it's unclear why he managed to keep his wife in the dark about it all. To get to the bottom of the things, police talked to his family, friends from back home, and co-workers. Turns out Li Hao was actually an employee at the Law Enforcement Division of the Luoyang Technology Supervision Bureau, which means he worked in the public security system. That's a total scandal for the police, especially since he knew the laws he broke like the back of his hand. And that's the other part I mentioned. No wonder why he never got caught of anything suspicious. Still know his way out of many things. And get this, most of his family members were working for the government. How crazy is that? You wouldn't think a family like that would raise a monster like Li Hao. Apparently, Li Hao and his wife looked totally normal on the surface, with no signs of trouble in their relationship. Li Hao's colleagues said he was always on time and didn't seem like a bad guy, even though he didn't attend many after-work events with them. But he got a family, right? He had all the excuses to not show up in various occasions. So, like, the cops were all investigating and stuff, trying to figure out how this dude got so messed up. But they couldn't come up with anything. And we're just like... Hi, so I was thinking about adding some fancy psychological terms about serial killers to dig deeper into Li Hao's psyche and maybe even the Stockholm syndrome that the girls suffered. But my script about Li Hao's story is already pretty long. And to top it off, my day job has been crazy busy lately, so I can't spend as much time making my true crime videos as I would like. So it looks like we are wrapping up this case for today. I hope you enjoyed the story. And if you found this video interesting, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more crazy stories like this one. Trust me, you won't want to miss out on the next one. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.